Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Be Informed podcast. Walking Out on Purpose series, man. Um, this episode is strictly talking about the difficulty of waiting on God's timing. And this is just about to be a real conversation. I'm trusting that God will help me and assist me and bringing out and communicating this topic, because I do believe it's an interesting topic, and it's a topic that we need to speak about when it comes to the faith, our faith, which is Christianity, or we would say Christian beliefs. And the reason why I think it's important is because a lot of times this is an area where the enemy attacks us, because we really can't see what God is doing in our lives. And so that brings up some sort of misinformation, anxiety, worry, and in reality, what that does is that allows room for doubt, right? And so oftentimes the enemy then plants seeds into our hearts and into our minds, where it's like, okay, I can't see God. I don't know what God is doing. So let me just go over here and do this on my own, right? And oftentimes, for the most part, it may lead to sin, or it leads to disobedience. And that's not a place where we want to be as believers and as Christians, because the word says we walk by faith, not by sight. But the challenge is, if I'm living in a day-to-day atmosphere where it's real, I have to get up, go to work. I have to handle my responsibilities. I have things that, needs to get done. I can't it just seems as if when we say wait on God's time, it's just like wait to do nothing. Or it seems as if it's like, just go over here and do what you're doing. But every 2 seconds, you got to make sure you check in, with God, to see if you're doing this right, or if it's what you're supposed to be doing. That's what wait feels like, or it sounds like when we hear that word. But my whole thing is to challenge that, because we can't just go along with the flow, not knowing where we stand, not knowing what our purpose is in life, not knowing what is it that we are called to be doing in a specific season even. So let's unpack that real quick. So in speaking about this topic, an interesting thing that happened is, starting off, I had a whole different episode planned out, right, that I wanted to speak about. And I think I may still touch on some of those topics and subjects in this episode. But out of the blue, in preparation, just going over, gathering my thoughts, right, this topic just popped up, and I'm like, yo, this ties into the Walking Out on Purpose series, because it's an important matter, right? In terms of walking out on purpose, is the waiting period, the trusting period, the listening for God's voice period. And so why not talk about that? Yes, we know what purpose is by now. We know what being called to purpose is. It's a choice. It's something that's destined. But now, what about waiting on instructions, further instructions, right, on what to do exactly whilst you walk out on purpose, whilst you're walking in purpose? So let's touch on that a bit. And for me, I'd like to give my personal testimony, because I feel like that's what this whole thing is about, right? Speaking from experience, letting others know what you went through in your walk and in your faith that may be beneficial for them. Oftentimes, some of the obstacles that we find in our walk with Christ is the practical side of it, right? We can see the verses, we can see the scriptures, but actually applying them can become an issue, just being honest. And for me, in my testimony, I found that knowing God's voice is one of the key factors and your ability to trust him. And that's something that we see online, where there's a lot of books, a lot of commentators, a lot of people speaking on the topic of hearing God's voice, right? It's such a big topic because people don't know, they're not sure if the voice that they are hearing, if it's from God, or if the idea that just popped up randomly, if it's from God. And that's something for me, I'd like to highlight, because for you it may not be the same, or maybe it may be the same, but for me and my relationship with God and my experience, when God speaks to me, it's a still small voice. It's something that is in my spirit that reassures me. It's kind of like something that's out of the blue sometimes, but it's like, it's good. It's good for you, right? And that this voice, it's like it's something that's looking out for your best interest, kind of thing. And that's the experience I've had. It's hard to describe, but that's the experience I've had. And so, in my desire to always, find a wife and be with someone, I would always say, God, this is the kind of person that I wanted. And from an early age, I knew what I wanted. From an early age, the temptation for me was, when will this person show up? When will this person be here? Because I believed in the fairy tale. I believed in the whole experience of being in love. And so, which I still do. And so, as a result of that, I did all I could to make sure that I was seeking, that I was looking, that I was searching. Wherever I thought that this person would come from, I would do it. If I were to go into details of some of the things that I did, even as a teenager, it would be like, man, people go to this length just to find love or just to fall in love. And so it's a pattern that I saw in my life as I grew older, and that desire only got more and more and more, because during my college days and during my high school days, everyone had a girlfriend, right? And so it seems like everyone was in a relationship except for me, because my whole thing was I had to find the one. I had multiple choices. I could have, if I really wanted to be with someone, I just could have been with someone. But that was not my plan. That was not my goal. I wanted to be with the one. And so I would hold out. I would seek and seek. I remember we used to go on the bus sometimes when the basketball team would play, or when the softball or volleyball team would play. And because they would go to other schools, to play, and I would be on the buses. Sometimes, of course, as a player, but other times just as a student, going to the games in hopes of probably meeting someone or probably seeing the one at the game. And so little things like that started planting seeds without me knowing, without me understanding. It was planting seeds into my heart, like, this is something that you have to go and do. This is something that you have to find, right? This is someone that you have to find. And so what that did was, after becoming, a believer and walking in my walk with God, I still had the same habit of going places, going to different churches, And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But when your sole purpose is going to churches just to find someone, me personally looking back at it, I'm not speaking for everyone, but me personally looking back at it, I don't think that's something that was healthy, just because if God didn't really put it on your heart to visit a church or to visit somewhere, or And I'm not saying that visiting churches is not something that you should do, but I'm saying when you have the desire to solely just church hop, just for the sole purpose of finding someone, in the long run, there's consequences that you may not be seeing right now. And for me, that was the case, because I would go to these churches and really not even care about what the word was, what the message would be. My whole focus the whole time would be, oh, she's nice, or you know, or where's youth ministry, or that kind of thing, because I would think this is where I had to be in order to see or find the one. And so I say all of this just to say, in the end, I burnt out, right? Even though I understood, even though I knew God's way, even though I understood that God wanted me to wait, I've seen countless messages, countless warnings, countless random pop-ups in terms of scriptures. There are times where I would be praying, asking God, what do I do? Like, where's this person gonna come from? Everything. And randomly a message would just pop up, or randomly a scripture pop up. Wait on the Lord, trust. I remember there was this one girl, I just saw her and I was like, yo, this is perfect, right? She's perfect in terms of aesthetics, in terms of what I wanted, what I was looking for in a person. And I prayed. It's like I believe, like, if I could just have this one person, everything would be okay, everything would be right. And I prayed. And there was this one morning I woke up and I was like, I prayed and I was like, God, if this is meant for me to pursue this person, send me a sign as soon as I open my phone, right? And so, I think as soon as I open Instagram or something like that, or open my phone, I don't remember which one it was, but the first thing I did when I as soon as I opened my phone, I think it was my phone probably was shut down on Instagram. So as soon as I unlocked the phone, it opened right back to Instagram, and the page reloaded. And the first post, the first person that I saw on post a status was her. And so I clicked on it, and the minute I clicked on it, it was like, be patient, wait on God, or you'll ruin it. Now, for me, I already knew what that was saying to me. I knew I had just prayed, right? I had just prayed for a word, for a revelation, and for confirmation whether or not I should pursue this person. And the very person, the first thing in the morning, made a status about being patient, waiting on God, or you will ruin it. So not only did I get a word, but I got a warning as well, right? And that's how I felt. But guess what? Even with that, because of the desire, because of the urge, and because I had a habit of seeking and searching and doing things on my own, guess what? A few weeks later, I was like, I don't know, man. I'm just gonna try my hand. Right? And what had happened was, I think I saw a post that she made mentioning something along the lines of a relationship. Or I don't know. I'm not sure. But I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna just stay here waiting around and for this person to be in a relate. She may be in a relationship, because at the time I think she was single. So I'm like, it just felt like if I waited for one more second that she would pop up in a relationship. So I was like, nah, I'm not gonna wait. Let me just shoot my shot. And it's so funny. But so I just, shot my shot, not in an obvious way, but I just, dipped my toes in to try to feel the water or whatever. And the water was cold, to say the least. But she was nice and polite with it. She just was like, nah, she's not. She's not into that right now, and so that's not where her focus is right now. So I was like, all right, cool, thanks. And for me, what that did was it hit me, like, yo, you definitely knew this was a sign from God. You definitely knew what the answer was, and yet you still went and tried your hand. Why I did that is simply because of the desire. The magnitude of the desire outweighed my desire to wait and trust in God. That was simply it. And because I didn't have the discipline, I was way more accustomed to doing things my way and seeking my way. I felt like the wisdom that God had gave me, and the intuition that God has given me to walk in my purpose. Now I've used it to try to examine and analyze situations and be like, okay, this situation could work for me. This is the best situation for me. When in reality, it proves to be wrong. My good analysis, my good intuition proved to be wrong. Right? Because this person that I was hell-bent on being in a relationship with was like, nah, that's not what God is saying to me right now. That's not my season right now. My season right now is not to be focused on any relationships, And so it's like, dang, this is literally a comparison. Someone who's being patient and waiting on what God has for her versus someone who's not being patient, right, and waiting on what God has for him. And I know that the topic of being in a relationship is something that's an issue and an issue of concern for many Christian singles, right? Because we don't want to walk in sin, just to be blunt with it. We don't want to walk in sin. We want to be in love. We want to feel what it is to be in love, right? But at the same time, you can ruin your calling, you can ruin your destiny just solely off of being in a relationship with the wrong person. So this is something that's so important that we should not just be making that decision on our own and by ourselves without first consulting what God has to say, about the situation. And so for me, I came to that realization, but not after bucking my toes a few more times, right? I know I'm stubborn, but the effect from that experience made me realize that, okay, I had to come to a point where I submitted everything to God, right? And whether or not he came through in 2 months, 2 years, or however long it took, I would have to be okay with that, right? And so I'm not gonna give the whole testimony. I'll save that for some other time, but I'll just say that I got there, right? I got to the point where I was like, you know what, God, I'd rather do things your way and save others from being hurt and save myself from being hurt than to just feel like I'm doing things on my own, than to feel like, yeah, I'm in control, right? Because there's a sense of responsibility, there's a sense of joy, and you feel good about making a choice, making a decision, having to choose, pick and refuse, critiquing people's character, or like, I'll look good with this person, I'll look good with so and so, or the chase feels good, especially as a guy. The chase feels good, and I would only imagine for the ladies how being pursued it feels good means that you're wanted, you belong, right? And so oftentimes that's the only reason why sometimes we seek that validation, we seek that attention, is to feel wanted, is to feel loved, which is a perfect thing. But with the wrong mindset, it can lead to hurt, it can lead to many misfortunes. And so that's one of the main reasons why it's important to trust and to wait. But the topic of this situation is not, the topic of this matter is not just about trusting and waiting. It's more so about the difficulty of trusting and waiting, right? So let's dive into that some more. Okay, so here we have I just did a simple Google search, and the result came back and it says something that I find to be important and relevant. It says, waiting on God is a spiritual discipline. It is the active hope in His promises. It is the active dependence upon and obedience to God, even when it seems like He is not there. It is meant to be challenging, to help us grow closer to Him as we seek Him out and trust and hope in His promises and His goodness. Right? That's from centerpointfl.org. And so some of the things that I want to highlight from that short statement is, waiting on God is a spiritual discipline. That's it. Right? The Bible says that as men, as fathers, we discipline our kids just because sometimes. But God isn't like that. When He disciplines us, it's for a purpose, it's for a reason. It's to help bring out something in us. It's to help develop our character. And that's the whole point of it. Why is it difficult? Why didn't God just put it out plainly what He wants me to do? Sometimes when we know the expected end, it's hard for us to get through. It's just like for NBA season. If the players, I'm pretty sure some believe that the NBA is scripted, right? But even if it is, or if it isn't, if the players knew the end result and who would win the championship, what then would be the reason or purpose for them to even go hard throughout the regular season and strive and work to make it to the playoffs and then play in the championship to win it all? If I already know that the Lakers are going to be the 2023 NBA champions, why do I have to show up and put a toll on my body for 82 games when, I know that I'm not gonna be the champion at the end of the day? But that's neither here nor there, right? So that's what the spiritual discipline is all about. Helping us to get through the process, work out the kinks that we have to work out in order to become better and to become closer to God at the end of the day. This statement I want to read from GodQuestions.org says, waiting on God means going without answers to prayer, wondering why the wicked seem to prosper, and having desires delayed and hope deferred. God has a greater perspective of life's events, and His perspectives, plans, and schedules are perfect and holy, because He is perfect and holy. The Psalmist tells us, as for God, His way is perfect. If God's ways are perfect, then we can trust that whatever He does and whatever His timing is also is perfect. When we understand that fact, waiting on God is not only made less difficult, it actually becomes joyful. This statement says that waiting on God can keep us out of trouble. Abraham had God's promise of a son, through whom the covenant would be fulfilled. Abraham and Sarah tried and waited, but they could have no child. Rather than waiting on God and His timing, they unwisely took matters into their own hands, and Ishmael was the result. And that's how sometimes we can ruin something just by going ahead and trying, right? It's like, okay, whilst I'm waiting on God, let me go try. Let me go see what the result of this will be. If anything, What's the worst that could happen? Right? And that's where I was. That's what my mindset was. Well, let me just try. It's only one thing. Either it's a no or it's a yes. You know? So it's like, let me just try. But what we often don't understand is that when you create soul ties in terms of relationships, when you create these soul ties, you're getting to know people, and then you're just abruptly cutting it off just because it's not working or it's not what you wanted. You're damaging someone. You're leaving someone hurt. You're leaving someone, feeling hopeful 1 minute, and then the next minute nothing happens. You just up and leave. And so these are the things that we must take into consideration, So after all, I'd like to leave you guys with a scripture, and it's Proverbs 13:12. It says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life." And quickly, what that just simply means to me is that while hope deferred, it makes the heart sick, like you feel all of the pain, all of the hurt, all of the loneliness, or whatever the situation may be, the sorrow that comes with not having. But when that longing that you had is fulfilled, it's a tree of life, meaning that it brings forth so many more opportunities, so many more glorious experiences. And a tree of life is a tree that keeps on giving. It keeps on giving. And that's the same thing that happens when we wait on God and then God meets our needs. It exceeds our expectations so much more, right? And it brings forth so many more blessings that we now have more faith to rely on God. We trust Him more. We can depend on Him more. We love Him even more. We worship Him. We glorify Him. And because we waited in the process, and others may be seeing that process that we are going through, and then when the fruits come, when the reward come, they're like, oh wow, praise God, thank God you waited. They begin to now build faith and say, if she can do it, or if he can do it, I too can do it. And I think that that's the thing that we have to keep in mind, is that there's a reason why it's difficult. There's a reason why you're waiting. There's a reason why it's not happening when you want it to happen. It may not sound like that's not what you want to hear, that's not what you want to feel, but trust that God is sovereign. Trust that in the end, it will all work out for your good. And that being said, man, I'm out. I promised that I wasn't going to keep you guys for too long, so peace. Thank you, and stay tuned. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with somebody do you know that it can possibly bless, and encourage them to keep on walking out on purpose for their purpose. Peace.